Let's go. We are back. It is game time. Mike Scharfenberg game plan you today, and welcome back to another Friday edition of Interview with Influencers. And as always, thank you for spending part of your day with us. And without further ado, it's a fantastic Friday. You don't want to hear me talk. We got a big time guest on tap today, and without further ado, let's bring him on out. So this gentleman spent about 3 years working his way up the ranks in the part of the New York Yankees sales team before recently transitioning to his current role as the director of sponsorship sales with the Collegiate Sport Management Group. A former colleague of mine with the Yankees. Let's give a big virtual round of applause to Mr. Zach Ravine. Zach, welcome to the show, my man.
Thanks for having me, Mike. Great to be here.
Of course. And, I think you and I, so for listeners out there, obviously Zach and I teammates at the Yankees for a little bit there. And then we reconnected last week. And I think towards the end of the conversation, it was just, well, number one, catching up. But then number two, it was just volleying back and forth, nugget after nugget, and, just sharing insight and motivational, analogies. And I took a step back at the end. I'm like, first off, Zach, we should have recorded this conversation. It would be but no, with that being said, we were both like, we gotta have this conversation on the show and for the Interview with Influencer community. So with that said, everyone here knows who I am, but who cares about me? For those who don't know, who is Zach Ravine? Walk us through that journey.
Well, I care about you, Mike. So
well, that's all
going for you. So, normal guy, grew up in northern New Jersey, right outside of Manhattan, wanted to experience a different part of the United States for college. So went down to Elon University in North Carolina, where I made some amazing friends and colleagues that I actually work with today, and then also, still stay in touch with across the industry. So actually, literally 3 days after walking across the stage at graduation, I started as a junior sales rep with the New York Yankees, and kind of just found my way with it. Took to the training and really trusted my instincts and just sold. Just really tried to learn the lay of the land and figure out the nuts and bolts of how to do what we do and how to do it well. And was lucky enough to make my way up to the inside sales team relatively quickly, and then spent about a year and change there. Then went to be the account executive of group sales there, where I was part of a 7-man team at the time. And that was everything under the sun, from account management, servicing, prospecting, finding new people to work with, new brands to work with, organizations. Really, it was kind of a no holds bar effort, and all ideas were welcome. So it was nice to be able to stretch that creative portion of my brain for a little bit, and, really, really learn the lay of that land. And from there, unfortunately, COVID took its toll on all of us in this industry, and we had to deal with it as a result. But, bounced back from that. I actually did a program with a company called Sponsor United as a sponsorship scout for a few months, which was a really amazing kind of intro into sponsorship. And for anyone out there who's looking to gain a knowledge of not only the sports industry, but how sponsorship and partnerships plays a major role, check them out. They're doing some great stuff over there. And then was lucky enough to, get this opportunity with CSMG, and it's been crazy just from day one. Hit the ground running, and just no stopping since. Just foot on the gas. It's been pretty crazy, actually.
And making the jump into leadership, and I know it's a new venture, and we spoke about it, but it was coming out of your comfort zone and embracing that, and really hitting a home run there. And I'm curious, because when you and I first met with the Yankees, you were slinging group after group. And for someone starting out in ticket sales, I'm like, man, look at this guy. Like, he can make a living, a real good living off of this. But I know you made the jump, and you and I, when we spoke last week, like, partnerships was always where your heart lied. What is it specifically about partnership sales that was like, that's where I want to go, that's where I want to be?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, part of me would be lying if I didn't say that, I love the big value that comes with it in terms of, the dollar figures. I mean, who doesn't love, especially in sales, who doesn't love bigger sales? But for me, the reason I got into sports was I wanted to have an impact. I wanted to be somebody that, made that experience more memorable for somebody. And that's partially why I started in tickets, because you really get to get in at the ground level and you meet the people that you're going to be impacting. And I wanted to see what I was doing, even though, if you really think about it, it's some things can be so minuscule, but means so much to some people. And I feel like partnerships is a way to not only create that between an organization and a brand, but it's the best way to create a long-lasting relationship with your fans too, and with the people around you. And I just love the idea of that high-level relationship development and building and creating things together that have never been created before, to literally get a smile and a positive reaction from the people that are supporting you.
I mean, you said so much to unpack there. I think number one is building it together, and how one of my mentors explained sales to me, and I never forgot it was, you could be sitting face to face with someone pitching them something, or you and I could be sitting next to each other working together to figure out what's the best fit. And often now with transactional sales, it's tough when you got to make 100 cold calls a day to be doing that. And I think in terms of, you mentioned impact, and I think I have an idea of where you may have got that. I'll never forget my first day with the Yankees. Mike Robbins came up to me and he said, "You ready to go?" And I said, "I'm ready." Couldn't be more excited. And he said, "Just don't be excited, make an impact. Let us know you were here." And that always stuck with me. I never let him forget that. So it's making an impact on the organization, on your partners, on the fans, on whoever, right? It's making that positive impact. And, speaking of the Yankees and your experience in ticket sales, like, what was it? What skills did you take away from your time in the ticket sales and service industry that are helping you crush it with your new role in partnerships?
Everything. I mean, I don't think there's a single thing that I would take out from those experiences, whether it's, servicing something from start to finish, seeing what you created become, a reality, and making sure that all those involved are happy with those results. Unfortunately, sometimes dealing with negative results and, coming back to somebody who expected something and you didn't meet their expectations. So, learning how to manage those expectations and, just moving forward with everything. It's so important in any type of sales environment. To say that there are 2 or 3 specific things is tough. I mean, even outside of training, you just learn so much day to day just by doing it. And even now, there are things that I'm learning that, it's not as simple as shooting an email over to somebody because you have a good idea and they, in your head, oh, of course they should get back to me. This is a no-brainer. But that doesn't mean it's going to happen. So, yeah, it has to be, I'd say, a little bit of everything.
Yeah, all of the above. And I think that kind of brings up a good point in terms of sales in particular. I think a lot of times today, people just look at sales as like, whether it's ticket sale, whatever you're selling, gym memberships, TVs, partnerships, people look at sales as, I'm just forcing a product down someone's throat. Like, how do you view sales, and why was that an attractive career path for you?
I view sales, and this is to quote an old mentor of mine, PJ Davidson.
Group sales legend.
I compare sales to fitting a round peg in a round hole and a square peg in a square hole. You are finding people who might not necessarily know they need something, and you're providing it for them in some aspects. In other aspects, you're building relationships. That's what sales is. Some things are much more transactional and can be a very cut and dry business-like relationship. But to me, sales is getting to know the person across the table from you or on the other line if you're on a call, and learning how you can best help them achieve their goals.
Yep. Yeah, because if they win, you ultimately win. We win together. That always has to be your mindset. Win together, right? And oh man, do I miss those Davidson nuggets. I'll never forget my first day with the Yankees. I was shadowing Sinelli, and I'm sitting there and like nugget after nugget, I'm like, I couldn't write down fast enough. But no, yeah, he's a legend in the industry doing big things with Queensboro. But speaking about, sticking to the whole topic of sales, I think a lot of times there's a lot of situations that are going to be uncomfortable, right? Even if you're looking for a job and you have to move across the country not knowing anyone, like, you're going to be put in uncomfortable situations if you want to be successful. Right. So how do you view becoming comfortable, being uncomfortable? What does that mean to you? And if you want to give an example or two of in your career, how it's helped you get to the next step.
Yeah. I mean, I think something that comes with sales that's always a little scary is the actual pitch itself. And knowing that there's a chance that the person that you're speaking to isn't really going to either listen to or hear what you're saying, and they have their decision made up. And I think how I get comfortable being uncomfortable is I almost force myself to be in those situations where, things like that could happen. But, I know if I'm doing my best possible pitch, and if it's just not a fit, it's not a fit. But for me, putting yourself in that environment is the best way to do it. And, it's always hard because in the back of your head, you don't want to fail. We all want to have that winning mentality and just want to be successful. But the fact of the matter is, it's not going to happen all the time. And honestly, I always used to say when we were at the Yankees, some of the bigger sales that I made were people that hung up on me or told me no, because those are the ones that, if you think for a second, like, maybe somebody's just having a bad day, or it could just be that the timing was off. It doesn't mean that, you can't try again and you can't go for it again.
Spot on. I mean, think back to, everyone listening out there, like when you were 5, 6, 7, and you tried to ride your bike for the first time. I guarantee you weren't doing wheelies in the driveway. You were falling and you were scraping your knees. Did you get back up? Or were you, 2 years later riding, right down the campsite and around town over the summer? Like, you're gonna fall, but it's how can you get up and get better? And I think that's a great kind of segue into failure. I hate the word failure because I think if you have the right mindset, you never actually fail because you're always learning something, right? Mm-hmm. Failure. So like, how do you view that? How do you view failure? And what is your mindset there? Say you have a bad phone call or a meeting didn't go well. Like, what is your mentality and your mindset?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of just failure being important, it's crucial. I mean, nobody wants to fail. I think I could say that, especially for somebody in sales. That's the worst possible thing that can happen is you don't hit your numbers and you're not getting where you want to be. I think one thing that's always left out of that failure is the ability to allow yourself to be upset. And I think that's something so crucial that a lot of people miss out on, and they harp on themselves for it. And instead of, just taking a second to take a step back and say, wow, I messed that up. That sucks. And just taking a second to be like, wow, I got to catch my breath after this one. And, I want to take a 5-minute break. And then you come back and you say, okay, where did I fail in this? What part of this caused me to fail? And that's where you can start taking those little pieces and applying them to the future. And I'll be the first person to tell you that sometimes I move so fast that you send the slightest incorrect detail in an email. And whether that's the spelling of somebody's name or, just something that could throw it off. I literally put a Post-it above my bed. It's right here. It says, just slow check everything. Like, you got to just teach yourself whatever ways you have to overcome those failures. And I think that's how you get past failure itself, is you figure out what's failing you and why, and you just try to get on top of it.
Spot on. And it is so funny. I have that same It's not a post-it note. I have it on written though, right above my computer on a piece of tape. Like, that's so funny. But no, yeah, and it's like failure goes to waste if you don't slow down, like you said, and learn from it.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're going to make the mistake again, right? So it's really taking that time to analyze. Okay, why did this happen? How can I not let it happen again? How can I learn and grow? And that's really what it comes down to. And I think kind of a nice segue now into a topic that's very important, especially, now we're coming out of this pandemic and the industry is coming back bigger and better than ever. But there was a lot of, I know you and I both had very similar opportunities in sports where we had to, we had two roads. You could either be down in the dumps on ourselves, or we can continue to strive and grow and trust the process. So speak to adversity a little bit. And if you want to speak to kind of what was going through your mind during the pandemic and how you kind of pivoted, stayed positive, and got to where you are today.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. Like when I lost my job because of the pandemic, I cried a little bit.
Yeah.
Like it was years and years and years of hard work that was taken away from me by something out of everybody's control, and that hurts a little bit. And I think a lot of the same methods of applying to that failure model that we spoke about apply here. I took a couple weeks off just to catch up with myself and, get a lay of the land, get an overview, and see where I stood in actuality and what my best next steps could be. And I started using this phrase during that time. And I just said to myself every day, this is a setback that's a comeback waiting to happen. And I live by that. And, it got me through, having that mentality and just knowing and allowing yourself to know that right now at that point, that situation was terrible. Nobody wants to go through that at any point. But unfortunately, it was out of our control and we had to. So letting yourself be upset a little bit is okay. And then again, just finding those things that can help you move forward and get better as you go. I think it's so important to look at everything, no matter how minuscule, and see how it affects you in any way, shape, or form, and see if there are things that are missing or things that you can take out.
Yeah, no, I mean, I could not. I love that. I wrote that down. That's going in the Nugget notebook. I love it.
The Nugget notebook. That's amazing.
You gotta have it. You gotta have it. I got it from the great Larry Long.
Right here.
Boom, there it is. You gotta have it. So for those who don't have a Nugget notebook, you're already behind the 8 ball. Let's go. You watch this podcast. I'm sure you'll be able to fill up a few pages, and we got you all started. So. But no, I love that. And, you trusted the process, right? And you continue to stay positive, and look where you ended up, in a leadership position for the first time, doing what you always set, your mind that you wanted to do. So walk us through that now. Like, what does your day-to-day look like over there?
I mean, every day is different, man. It's crazy. There's a lot of different things going on at a lot of different times, and there's a lot more to learn. It's not necessarily, and not saying this is simple, because at the time it seemed almost impossible memorizing an entire stadium and knowing that, when you're going past the 20s into the 30s, you're going to the third base line. And when you're in the teens, you're by first base. There's so much learning that you have to do on a daily basis. And there's obviously an option to do it, but, in my opinion, there's no option, because, you need to be seeing who's doing what and where different sects of brands are operating. And, like crypto has been a huge thing. And, that wasn't necessarily in my wheelhouse before, but I've been teaching myself about it because I want to get better about it and I want to be able to speak to it. And, day to day, it's crazy. You sometimes you're talking to a brand that you grew up with, and you have to know how to almost act like you've been there before a little bit, and be that professional. And then, there are some days where it's very similar to our time at the Yankees, where, you know, you're pumping out some emails and you're making your calls where you can, and trying to set up more meetings. You know, there's things that carry over, but, you know, every single day is completely different, which I love.
Oh, there's nothing better. And I think, and all the respect in the world to the teachers and education system out there. But, you know, that's where I spent 3 years. And for me, I just couldn't see myself doing that every day, year after year, day after day, teaching the same lesson plans. Like you and I have that same mindset of, I just want to go to work and not know what today's going to, you know, have in store for me, what big relationship I'm going to form today. Right. It's that kind of that hunger, that athlete mentality. And I think you mentioned a few times there, but it's continuously learning. It's being genuinely curious, not just about people, but about your surroundings, and paying attention to, you know, you may be out at the bar, but a certain beer brand, and you could think of potential connect. Like, you never know. So like,
I love that you just said that, because I literally have a note in my phone that is brands that I see when I'm out doing things, whether it's just at the supermarket or if I'm walking around the city, whatever it is, I have that list. So if I see it, I'm going to write it down, because I see something with them activating, and I want to make sure that I'm at least on their list to be one of their next activations.
Right there. And I know I sound like a broken record, but the biggest piece of advice I ever gotten is your profession isn't a job. Jobs are 9 to 5. It's a career. And a career is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Not saying you need to be emailing and reading and on the phone, but it's just being aware, being curious, and continuously to learn and around your surroundings. I couldn't love that more. And I think to speak to lifelong learning a little bit more, because it's so integral. You know, the second you stop learning, you're toast. You're going to sink and you're done. What are some of the things that you do? Obviously, having a very busy schedule, like what are some of those little nuggets or ideas or things that you would recommend for those out there to do to continuously grow and get better in business and in general?
Yeah, I mean, you know, taking a step away from business, you know, I've started using Duolingo a little bit, and like just trying to teach myself a second language. And, you know, because why not? You know, I have in the 10-15 minutes it takes to do that a day, it's valuable learning. And also, like, I've started to pick up reading again. And I'm the kind of person that I love a good book that's related to business and sales, and you know, putting your best foot forward and everything under the sun with that. But, you know, I'm also reading Dune for the first time, because I saw that movie's coming out, and I was like, wow, that's actually a classic. You know, I've never read that before, and why not? So taking that time to just literally learn about something that has no relation to my actual career, aside from the fact that I'm curious about it. And I think just being able to feed that curious energy with whatever it may be is how you learn and grow. Because if you start to limit yourself on only doing things that are related to your career and to business, then you're going to burn out.
Yep. And think about this too. I was having a conversation with a buddy about this the other day, but by doing that and reading the book, what if you're having a coffee or you're out and that comes up as a topic of conversation, and it breaks the ice, and it could lead to a bit, like, you just don't know. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's continuously just put yourself out there and do different things and try different things, meet different people. I love that. And, you know, now I know we're running up against the clock, so let's kind of do a 180 here to really kind of dive into the core of why this podcast was started. And that's for, you know, college students, for those in the industry maybe looking to pivot their career or look for their next job. You know, now someone who's finding himself in a position to make some hires for the first time. Like, I know it's weird. I know. But what do you look for? What do you look for when you're speaking to candidates to join the team?
I look for valuable experience first and foremost. I think anybody can say, I worked for the Yankees, I worked for the Mets, I worked for any team XYZ. But I would rather personally have somebody that spent their time doing relevant work in single A baseball than somebody who just focused more on the name of the people they were around and just lived in that area for most of their time there. And also, I just look for a genuine personality. I look for somebody who doesn't necessarily want to tell me what I want to hear and just answer my questions with, all the buzzwords that are supposed to get you excited. I like people who can talk to me like I'm a person. And, and I tell, whenever I've done something for Elon or I've spoken to other people or different younger people, they ask me, like, what do you respond to in a LinkedIn message? And, it's tough to answer that because sometimes I don't know, but I'll tell you, like, if you're going to reach out to somebody and it's your first time reaching out to them, don't ask them for a job. Don't ask them to push your resume along. Talk to them. Ask them for advice. See if you can build a little bit more of a relationship with them than just, hey, my name is Zach. Here's my resume. I'm really good for this job. Can you put in a good word for me, or can you help me out? Because the person that asks me for advice or wants to just have a genuine conversation with me is going to be the person that I end up helping out regardless. So that's where I think there's more of an impact, is just having that personality and being the person that just because I have a title, they realize that I'm also just a 25-year-old individual who is a human being.
That's it. That's all it is. And I mean, I love that analogy of, like, would you just walk up to somebody? So say I saw you, I'm a student, I see you in Target. Zach, you used to work for the Yankees. Now you're with, Collegiate Sport Management Group. Could you pass along my resume? You're going to look at them like, who the heck is this? What? What's your name again? Like, yeah. Whereas opposed to you make an introduction, I would love to just, take 10 minutes to learn about your career and learn about what you guys are doing over there. Yeah. Don't ask for anything, and it'll come. If you have the quality conversation, it will come. But I will say a piece of advice, and I've had a couple of my mentors, speak to me about it. And now, having students reach out to me, I have it all the time. Come prepared, right? Like, what is your view on preparation? I'm curious, and this could be, take this any way you want, but how do you view the importance of preparation?
Preparation's important. I luckily had the chance to speak with another interview with influencer guest, Dan Kaufman, and that was the main topic of our conversation. And he's a no BS kind of guy, and he gave it to me straight on how to be best prepared. And at that time, I didn't even realize that I wasn't as prepared as I could have been to have that conversation. And now I've taken that and applied it to everything I do here, and make sure anytime that I'm reaching out to somebody or trying to do something, that I am as prepared as possible with questions, answers, and everything that goes with it, because there's no need not to be.
At the end of the day, I mean, you can either be prepared or not. Opportunities are not going to come every day, they're one after the other. Like, you got to be prepared for every little thing that you do in life. I love that. And if you haven't reached out to Dan, he's a great guy. Him and I connected on multiple occasions. Highly, highly recommend it. He's a very busy man, but he makes time for everybody. So definitely reach out to him. And, Zach, the last question I have here, last two questions, is, think back. I know we kind of hit on it a little bit earlier, but think back to that time, during the pandemic, when you're just networking, you're trying to figure out where your next step is. What were some of the things that you did to put yourself ahead of everybody else that was looking to get into the same industry or get ahead of you? Like, what were some of those strategies that you utilized?
I think a lot of it goes back to what we just spoke about with hiring. I was just genuine. To me, it didn't necessarily matter when I was at the Devils before they were Harris Blitzer Sports and Entertainment. It didn't necessarily matter as much to me that Adam Davis was the CRO and still is the CRO. But to me, it mattered more that I was talking to Adam, someone who is a veteran of the industry and has so much knowledge that I would just be so lucky to learn from. And that's how I approached it, as just, hey, I know you're a busy guy, and I know you have a lot going on, but I would love to just talk to you for a few minutes and just learn from you and ask you a couple questions. And I think having that mentality of just being open-minded and not necessarily fearless, but just being open to being a little uncomfortable in that scenario, like, it goes a long way.
No, 100%. And again, I think it goes back to, not asking for a job or not asking for 20 minutes, 5 minutes, just have a quick cup of coffee and just have a conversation. And I think and you could attest to this, one of the awesome things about sports, especially during the pandemic, is executives give you your time. If you do it the right way, majority of them are going to give you that time because they all know. I mean, that's why this podcast was started. People did that for me, and I want to help the next generation, get those same opportunities. So love that. Great content. The last question I have is let's kind of take a step back. You graduated from Elon, you're showing up first day as a junior sales associate in the Bronx. You got your suit, you're looking like $100 million out there. And now you could fast forward, like, what would that one piece of advice be that you would give to your younger self?
Breathe. just breathe. Like, don't go into it telling yourself you need to do X, Y, Z from day one. Take a second, like, take it all in. Take in the fact that you have started to accomplish the goals that you've set out for yourself, and take a second to actually understand what's coming through for you, and take it all in. And I think on a secondary note to that, just take everything as it comes. Literally breathe when you get something. Just take everything through the process and step by step, and everything will work itself out.
What a way to end. I will give a shout out to our executive director of Career Connect, Denise Sack, who's a life coach. She was a 20-year therapist at Southern Connecticut, and that's what she preaches. Breathe. So that was D came to my mind when you said that. Like, live in the moment, right? Be where your 2 feet are, because if you're worrying about the call you have at 5 o'clock tonight, you're going to miss the next 2 hours that could potentially be career changing. Live in the moment, win each moment, and just know at the end of the day, like you said, like, you mess up a call. All right, great. Like, move on, breathe. It's not the end of the world. I guarantee you're not going to remember it moving forward. But what a conversation, man. It's always a pleasure linking up and connecting. And, I know you, like you said, you love connecting with other individuals, whether students, industry professionals, to have a virtual coffee and learn from each other. So how can the Interview with Influencer community connect with you?
Shoot me a note on LinkedIn. Shoot me a connect. Shoot me a note. I'm a pretty easygoing guy. Just don't ask me for a job on the first note.
Genuine. Be genuine. I know if we had $1 for every time we said that this show, but Zach, my man, thank you so much for coming on. Anything, you're welcome back anytime. Anything myself, Game Plan You, Interview with Influencer community, anything we could do for you and the business, just let us know, and welcome back anytime. So thank you again. Any final thoughts or words to leave the community?
No, I just want to say thank you again for having me. With all the guests that you've had in the past, it feels kind of surreal to have myself be in this place. So I just want to thank you for this opportunity, and I had a blast. It was a great time.
Of course, it was a great time, and you're an influencer now. You know that you've been an influencer for a while, so don't sell yourself short on that one. But thank you again, everybody, for tuning in. Stay tuned. We have a couple big time guests. Stay tuned to LinkedIn, and you'll be seeing those shortly. But have a great rest of your fantastic Friday. Enjoy the weekend and continue to get 1% better every day. Work doesn't stop on the weekends, everyone. So on behalf of Game Plan You, that's Zach. This is Mike. We'll see you next time, everybody. Take care.